It all started long before the wedding bells, before the headlines, before the world thought they knew who Meghan Markle really was. There was a story that existed behind the photographs and polished interviews, a story that moved quietly through private rooms and whispered circles. To most people, Meghan's rise seemed like fate, a fairy tale romance that crossed continents and rewrote royal tradition. But behind that fairy tale, there was a pattern of precision, timing, and strategy that no one could have predicted. Some call it ambition, others call it survival. Either way, it worked. Meghan didn't stumble into royalty, she built a bridge to it. And somewhere along that bridge stood a figure who had walked the same tightrope before Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York. What most people forget is that every major figure who enters the royal world brings something with them, an energy, a story, a purpose. Meghan's purpose was never to fit in, it was to change the game. And Sarah Ferguson understood that kind of purpose better than anyone. From the moment Meghan stepped into that world, the rules began to bend. The night that changed everything wasn't at a palace or a red carpet event, it was at a quiet gathering in London. The kind of evening where power doesn't announce itself but lingers in the air. The lights were soft, the music low, and the guest list filled with people who rarely appear in the same room. Among them was a woman who knew the royal world better than most Sarah Ferguson. She had seen the highs, the scandals, the exile, and the slow climb back. For decades, Fergie had danced between disgrace and redemption, learning the rhythm of royal politics with painful precision. And that night, she met Meghan. What passed between them was never fully documented, but what followed was undeniable. From that moment on, Meghan's name began to echo through circles that had been closed to her before. She was no longer just the actress from Suits. She was the woman who had the attention of people whose approval could change everything. Sarah Ferguson, known to those close to her as Fergie, had a way of spotting potential, and Meghan had it in abundance. The Duchess had once been cast out of the palace for her choices, but she also knew what it meant to survive that fall. To see another woman rise in a space built to keep outsiders out might have felt like déjà vu, or perhaps like opportunity. Meghan, for her part, understood something essential about power. It isn't about who you know, it's about how you use what you know. Every move she made after that seemed intentional, from her charity work to her perfectly timed media appearances. It wasn't arrogance, it was awareness. The royal world runs on image, and Meghan mastered it faster than anyone expected. She understood that visibility was influence, and influence was protection. The public saw glamour, romance, and defiance against an outdated system. But within palace walls, the story was much more complicated. The royal family operates on silence, a delicate balance between what's said and what's never acknowledged. For generations, secrets were currency and discretion was power. Meghan's arrival disrupted that balance. She wasn't raised to play by those rules. She came from a world where narratives could be shaped, rewritten, and monetized. To the monarchy, that made her unpredictable. To her supporters, it made her unstoppable. But unpredictability inside royal walls is like fire in a library. It draws attention fast and spreads even faster. As Meghan's relationship with Prince Harry deepened, so did the scrutiny. Every outfit, every glance, every headline became part of a larger conversation. Was she changing the monarchy, or was the monarchy changing her? And somewhere on the sidelines, Sarah Ferguson was watching with the kind of knowing expression that only experience could give. She had lived through the headlines herself, watched her own image torn apart and rebuilt, and she recognized the pattern. When the engagement was announced, the narrative seemed clear: the modern royal couple, breaking barriers and redefining tradition. But the closer the wedding came, the clearer it became that not everyone was ready for change. Inside the palace, whispers grew. Meghan's confidence, her independence, her refusal to fade quietly into the background, it all clashed with an institution that runs on conformity. Yet, while critics focused on etiquette, Meghan was focused on execution. She was planning her life like a campaign. Every move had meaning, every word had a message. She wasn't reacting to the royal world, she was rewriting how it functioned around her. Sarah Ferguson, too, had once tried to navigate that same labyrinth, charmed by love, undone by scrutiny, and later rebuilt by resilience. Fergie knew how it felt to be both celebrated and criticized in the same breath, and perhaps that's why she became an unspoken mirror to Meghan's journey. The wedding itself was more than an event, it was a declaration. The music, the guests, the tone, it all spoke of a future that looked nothing like the past. But even on that perfect day, the tension was visible. The fairy tale smile hid something else, a storm brewing quietly behind the scenes. The months that followed were relentless. Headlines grew harsher. Stories began to twist. For every act of charity, there was a rumor of tension. For every moment of grace, there was a shadow of controversy. Yet Meghan stayed composed. Silence became her armor. In a world where every statement could be weaponized, she learned to let speculation fill the silence, knowing that mystery often holds more power than explanation. Still, the palace is not a place that forgives disruption easily. Old patterns re-emerged, distance, formality, control. The same institution that once embraced her now seemed to close ranks. And while the public debated every headline, Meghan and Harry made a decision that would redefine royal history. They left. To some, it was betrayal. To others, it was liberation. But to Meghan, it was strategy. And in that moment, even Sarah Ferguson seemed to understand. She had once faced her own crossroads, stay inside the palace and fade, or step outside and rebuild. Meghan chose the latter, but on a grander scale. She understood that to keep her voice, she had to step outside the system built to contain it. Moving to California wasn't an escape. It was a shift from monarchy to media, from protocol to production. The girl who once auditioned for roles was now writing her own script. And while critics called it dramatic, it was actually tactical. Meghan and Harry turned their story into a platform, transforming controversy into currency and criticism into conversation. The same press that once tore them apart now became the tool to amplify their message. It was a power play the palace wasn't prepared for. Behind the scenes, figures like Sarah Ferguson watched with a mix of recognition and awe. She had fought her own battles with reputation, but Meghan was fighting on a global scale. The digital age had changed the game, and Meghan understood it better than anyone inside those gates. Her influence wasn't dependent on approval, it was built on audience. Millions listened, millions watched. And that kind of attention in the royal world is its own form of power. But power always has a price. The same public fascination that lifted Meghan up also turned on her with equal force. Every action, every silence was dissected. Her compassion was questioned, her motives analyzed, her image attacked. And yet, she adapted. She didn't vanish, she evolved. Each interview, each project, each statement seemed carefully measured, not defensive, but deliberate. And again, Sarah Ferguson's name appeared quietly in the background, mentioned in the press as another duchess who had once weathered her own storm of public perception. The Meghan Markle the world thought they knew in 2018 wasn't the same woman commanding global attention years later. She had learned how to turn scandal into substance. Whether you admire her or criticize her, you can't deny one truth: she changed the royal conversation forever. Before her, the institution dictated the story. After her, the players did. What's often overlooked is that Meghan never tried to destroy the monarchy. She exposed how fragile its image truly was. The system wasn't built to handle transparency, and Meghan's modernity forced it to confront that. She brought light to spaces that had existed in quiet shadow for centuries. And once light enters, it never really leaves. The palace may not admit it, but Meghan's influence shifted how the world views royalty. The days of silent endurance are fading. The days of narrative control are here. Even figures like Sarah Ferguson, who once struggled under the weight of press intrusion, have redefined their approach, becoming more candid, more open, and more self-aware. That's Meghan's legacy, not scandal, but transformation. The same woman once accused of being too ambitious now stands as a symbol of self-definition. She redefined what it means to be royal without a crown, influential without permission. Sarah Ferguson's story and Meghan's are threads from the same tapestry, two women who refuse to let the palace write their endings. Some will always see them as controversial, others will see them as courageous. But the truth lies somewhere in between, because real power never comes without friction. Inside the palace, silence remains golden, but outside, words have become a weapon, and Meghan mastered how to wield them without even speaking. Her story isn't one of rebellion, it's one of realization. She realized that power isn't inherited, it's created. and she created it in front of the entire world. Even now, years after leaving royal duties behind, her name still trends, her every move still analyzed. That's not coincidence. That's control. Whether you love her or question her, you're still talking about her. And that, in itself, proves how effectively she's shaped her narrative. The institution may prefer tradition, but Meghan introduced evolution. She took the royal stage and turned it into her own. The truth is, the monarchy didn't make Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle made the monarchy relevant again, at least for a generation that values authenticity over appearance. And that might be the biggest twist of all. Because in a family where silence once meant power, one woman's voice measured, strategic, and unshakably clear became the sound that changed everything. And perhaps that's why her story still fascinates us. It's not just about a duchess or a scandal. It's about what happens when a woman learns that the most dangerous thing she can be is unafraid. Sarah Ferguson once said that reinvention is survival, and Meghan proved it on a global scale. The palace may never fully accept her, and she may never fully belong to it, but that's precisely the point. Meghan Markle doesn't need the crown. The crown still needs her story. And in the end, that's the power no one saw coming.